will have to find an alternative because the virtual platforms will not be able to hold more and more people. So thank you very much for your loyalty. So we have Mrs. Isolina Bolto in charge of the networks and alliances within KOLEACP. She will be moderating this third session on the Pan-African African Continental Free Trade Area. By the way, Isolina, we received a certain number of contributions and questions from participants, and these are questions for the panelists. One of the questions is if this the question is whether or not this AfCFTA does it cancel trade barriers. This is a great opportunity for producers and African deciders. Amongst comments, several underline the challenges skills in companies. Sorry, where was I cut off? Very little. Please carry on. Unfortunately, this is the problem we have with connecting from Africa. But we're trying to do what we can. We're doing our best with our connection. I'm sure we'll have other questions and contributions. And as I said, they will be consolidated and presented at the end. I'll finish raising your awareness of the fact that programs and buyers were sent to you. This will be reminded in the chat each time a panelist takes the floor. Isolina, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you very much, Fatma. So busy program, not to lose too much time. I'm very happy to moderate today this very interesting, I think, topic. We will have a presentation by a just released, actually, and congratulations for that, Fatma, to you and your team, PAFO study on the position and the views from the African farmers organizations in the continent on the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement. And then we will have three presentations from three successful enterprises in different value chains and products and from different countries, Mali, Ghana, Uganda, and then some views from our discussants from policy, finance, research, and then we will have, of course, some questions. As always, we will encourage you already to put them in the question answer that our speakers, as they are making their presentation, can already view some of the questions or the contributions. So we do recognize all that the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement will have enormous opportunities for the continent in terms of trade, and in particular agricultural trade, be in fresh or processed food. But having said that, I mean, it doesn't go with some also challenges and practicalities, and specifically for the private sector, and even more to the segment, which is small scale, medium scale producers, cooperatives, farmers organizations, and so on. So is this particular angle that we would like to discuss today and hear from the field, from the operators themselves, and see what each of us and how we can contribute to improve or to bring further support. So without major delay, John Bosco KANYANGOGA has worked with PAFO to make this study, and based on surveys and feedback from the farmers. So John Bosco, you are international trade lawyer, but you have also a lot of experience at country level in the Ministry of Finance of Rwanda, but also have worked extensively on the EAC and EAC EU partnership agreement. So you will tell us in a summary in less than 10 minutes, please, the main findings of the study. I thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Solina. And I don't know, is controlling the system so that I show my I show my presentation, the slides.
I can do that. You told me that you will be doing yourself. That's why, but I'm happy to assist.
I have opened it. Very good. Thank you very much for this opportunity. As Isolina has mentioned, my name is John Bosco KANYANGOGA. I am a private consultant based in Kigali, Rwanda, and my main focus is in international trade and regional integration and general policy analysis. I want to begin by thanking PAFO for the opportunity they gave me to work on this important subject matter, which basically looks at positioning African farmers organizations in the context of AfCFTA. And I know I have very few minutes, so I'll be very, very quick. And according to my presentation outline, I will basically give a very brief background, and then I will touch very quickly on the provisions of the AfCFTA that may or that will directly affect agriculture, henceforth affect farmers on the African continent. And then I will touch on the regional farmers organizations' perceptions and recommendations. And based on that, I will show what we are proposing as important strategic interventions that can be taken on moving forward to effectively involve farmers' organizations in the AfCFTA process. And my research was based on analyzing a number of studies, a number of reports, and also talking to representatives of farmers' organizations on the continental level, beginning with PAFO. I had an opportunity to have extensive discussions with the PAFO Secretariat, and also got in touch with the regional farmers' organizations in the 5 regions in their respective structure. So very quickly, the first slide is a very common knowledge for most of us who are keen on following the AfCFTA process. We all know that it was signed on March 18th, 2018 in Kigali, Rwanda. And since then, a lot of things have been happening. And as of December 2020, 33 AU member states had already ratified. But when it comes to the signature, actually, all of them have signed with the exception of Eritrea. But when it comes to ratification, which is the actual process of implementation, because when countries sign, the implementation is not automatic until they have ratified. So for those that have ratified by December 2020, they were already 33, but now they are more than that as we speak today. And the trading under the AfCFTA regime started on the 1st of January, 2021. In terms of objectives and scope, we all know it's basically to create one continental market to allow free movement of goods and services, which will be accompanied by free movement of persons. And then the negotiations have been done in phases. Phase 1, they looked at the legal instruments that will allow the movement of goods and services, which include rules of origin, procedures to settle disputes, and also liberalization of key services sectors. And then for phase 2, it's going to be about investment, competition policy, intellectual property rights, and e-commerce. Yes, so basically what I've described is summarized in that chart for those who are interested in understanding basically in a general way what is contained in the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. And there's no need to spend much time on that. Yes. Next slide. Yes. So very quickly, let me dive into the key provisions that if you look at the agreement, if you look at the different protocols, if you look at all the instruments that are going to accompany the agreement, I try to look at some of the key provisions that may affect agriculture and then eventually the farmers on the continent. Of course, right from the beginning, we all know how agriculture is very important in Africa. We know how agricultural products in terms of the fresh produce right from the garden, and also what has been processed in terms of agro products. Very important on the African continent. So even when we talk of just trade, it's trade amongst each other, agro-products. As a matter of fact, agriculture, according to recent reports, agriculture contributes an average of 30 to 60% of GDP and about 30% of the value of exports for most African countries. This is how important the role of farmers is on the African continent, and yet the need to give them their rightful position, their rightful place on the continent. In terms of the provisions that may have a direct impact on agriculture and farmers, the first one is the tariff concessions themselves. When you talk of the elimination or the removal of tariffs, you'll find that some of the products are going to be affected. The agricultural products are also included. Then when we talk of the rules of origin, the rules of origin are going to affect agricultural products, whether they are wholly produced, those that are directly coming from the garden, or those that have been processed. So the way the rules of origin are set under the AfCFTA, they are going to affect the flow of agricultural products while being traded on the continent. Other key provisions are the ones that touch on non-tariff barriers. Some barriers that are not linked or related to tariffs. If some products are going to be facing non-tariff barriers, definitely if non-tariff barriers are not eliminated as it is on the paper, then that means agricultural products will also be affected in one way or another. And if they are removed, among the products that are going to benefit because of the removal of non-tariff barriers is going to be agricultural products. And the provision that touch on technical barriers to trade. Technical barriers to trade, basically we are talking of like SPH measures, standards. If those who are involved in the agro-processing, they have to be subject to certain standards for them to comply and be able to export across the borders. Then other relevant measures, the CFTA has what we call the exclusion list, where for countries that want to protect certain sectors or certain industries, they can exclude certain products, and that can also include agricultural products, depending on how the negotiations go. Then trade remedies and safeguards. That's also one way of countries, sectors, by invoking some provisions that are built within the CFTA architecture. And then finally, trade facilitation. Trade facilitation is going to be very, very important. The AfCFTA recognizes that and the need to enhance it. And this is very important because trade facilitation usually affects cross-border trade, which, according to most reports on the African continent, has revealed that most of the cross-border trade, especially the informal cross-border trade, the biggest percentage is about agricultural products. And most of the actors are women and youth who are trading these products. And sometimes you find a big number of these traders sometimes are actual farmers who are getting their produce right from the gardens, taking them across the border and selling them. So the more trade facilitation is enhanced, the more it's going to affect the trading of agricultural products and also the profitability of the farmers who are actually producing the agricultural products. And then the next two slides are about the perceptions of the farmers' organizations and the recommendations that we are proposing. So beginning with the perceptions, and these are like practical, if I may say, practical thoughts, practical sentiments, practical observations that we received from the representatives of regional farmers' organizations, where we were asking them to what extent have they been involved in the process and how they find this process important to them and to their respective members in their regions, even at the national level. And generally speaking, most of them say they were not fully or adequately involved in the process. Some are informed, but not so much. Others are just informed in terms of getting information from the media, but then they lack the deep understanding to a point of helping their farmers to take advantage of the AfCFTA. So according to what they communicated to us, their perceptions can be summarized in the following 8 points. Number one, they think there's a need to have continued advocacy on key policy issues that are related to the AfCFTA, so that even if they have not been fully involved in the negotiation process, at least they can be involved in the implementation process. Also, there's a need to strengthen farmers' organizations across the African continent. According to the regional farmers' organizations, they say sometimes to follow up this process, to be involved, to do like different studies, it requires some level of capacity, both technical and financial, which most of the time these farmers' organizations do not have. And hence the need for different partners and stakeholders to work together to build and strengthen the organizations that represent farmers across the continent and at different levels. Then there's also a need to design a specific support program that is targeting the involvement at the continental level, so that a channel can be created and means provided to involve farmers in the AfCFTA implementation process. Then there was a recommendation or a perception that there's a need to support PAFO specifically, so that PAFO can also be able to support the regional farmers organizations, so that they can also in turn support the national farmers organizations until the support reaches the common African farmer on his or her garden. Then there's a need to link family farmers to markets and relevant value chains, so that they don't miss out, and so that there is a clear and deliberate follow-up to ensure that the big agro-processors do not exploit the small family farmers. There's also a need to engage and coordinate relevant partners and stakeholders, because you find there are other key stakeholders, whether in public sector, private sector, or civil society, that have the interests of farmers at heart, but then they need a channel through which they can provide their support. Then there's a need to strengthen the PAFO African Union Commission partnership. I think this is very important. There's already, collaboration. There's already contact. Even when I was conducting this research, I got in touch with some of the people at the African Union Commission. I got in touch with Prudence SEBAHIZI, who is with us in this meeting. He also linked me to the department that is in charge of agriculture and rural development, and we exchanged some emails and they shared some insights. So there's a need to strengthen this partnership, both at the technical level, but also at the policy managerial level, so that these institutions can continue to work together in an effective manner. Then lastly, there's a need to utilize the AfCFTA, promote food security, and enhance agribusiness. We think this is very important. And then finally, I hope I'm respecting the time. This is the last slide. Based on the perceptions of the regional farmers organizations, based on the research that we did and the different reports that we read, and based on the recommendations that were given, we think there's a need to have the following strategic interventions which can help to effectively involve farmers organizations in the AfCFTA. Like I said, during the negotiations, the farmers organizations were not actively involved at all. But it's not late. It's not late because there are still other few elements that are yet to be negotiated in phase 2. So maybe the farmers organization to be given an opportunity to be involved at that level, but also bearing in mind that though the negotiations are over for some aspects of the AfCFTA, but the actual work is just beginning. The actual work is just beginning, the work of implementation. And I think this is the most even important. So these strategic interventions should help the farmers way forward so that they can be actively involved in the implementation process. And they are summarized in 5 strategic interventions. Strategic intervention number one is there's a need to enhance research for evidence-based advocacy. Whether it's at the national level, whether it's at the regional level, whether it's at the continental level, whether it's about modifying some policies, whether it's about calling for the implementation of the already existing policies, there's a need for advocacy to be continued, and advocacy becomes effective and impactful when it is evidence-based, and that requires some research. Strategic intervention number 2 is the need to strengthen the capacities of African farmers organizations. Some of the work that has to be done for effective advocacy may require some studies, may require some research papers, may require some technical presentations, and sometimes you find the farmers organization do not have those skills, and sometimes they don't have enough resources to hire experienced consultants to do the work. So they need to be supported in that area. Then very quickly, number 3, there's a need to strengthen partnership between the African Union Commission and PAFO, like I had said. Number 4, building more partnerships and alliances with PAFO. Here we're looking at the regional level, continental level, and even at the international level, looking at different organizations that already have the farmers' interest at heart. And then finally, there's a need for increased awareness campaigns and capacity building programs for the farmers organizations, and also eventually even farmers themselves at an individual level, whenever possible, through the respective national farmers organizations. With that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. And comments and questions are welcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John Bosco. So we'll get back, as we progress. Alors, sans plus attendre, nous allons commencer la partie.
Without any further ado, let's now move on to the part we're interested on operators. We'll start with Monsieur Moussa Silvain DIAKITÉ, who is the founder of a company from Mali, Fresh Mango. They export very successfully fresh mangoes. You created this company in 2006, and since then you've looked into local and regional markets, and you work hand in glove because you are very much involved in changing farming in your country, and therefore you work hand in glove with producers, and so you have a very big number of them. And you'll be telling us more about your company's model, its success, and you'll tell us about well, how it is to work on non-export African markets. Thank you, Monsieur DIAKITÉ. You have the floor.
Yeah, absolutely.
S'il te plaît, Mohamed, si tu peux me mettre le...
Oui, Isolina.
Oui, s'il te plaît. La présentation de Monsieur Diakité, j'ai un problème pour eux. Tu arrives à me la mettre sur l'écran?
Oui, je m'en occupe. Monsieur Diakité, est-ce que vous pouvez activer votre micro, s'il vous plaît?
Diakité, could you please unmute your microphone? And ladies and gentlemen, just a few seconds. We are waiting to upload the presentation. Super. Hello, can you hear me? Yes, Mr. Diakité, we can hear you. Okay, great. So, can I start? Yes, you can start. You can start. All right. Thank you very much. So my name is Moussa Diakité, and I created SES International. We are a Mali-based company based in Bamako, which is the capital city of Mali. But we work with 48 cooperatives and roughly 200 producers in 46 villages all across the country. So the company was created in 1997. We export 2,000 tons of fresh mangoes to the EU. We have 700 seasonal employees and two centers, one in Bamako and another facility in another city of the country. And we work with the network of roughly 1,000 small producers. And from these 1,000 small producers, 500 are certified and abide by the various standards, or production standards. Now, our products are practically organic products. And our activity, so we are leaders in the export of mangoes, so by ship to EU. SES exports to different countries, namely the Netherlands, Belgium, Germany, and other countries. As I said, we work with a network of producers in 46 villages and the main mango production basins. And our model of collaboration with small producers, so we have contracts, and then we have a quality team also, which is dedicated to making sure that the good standards are being provided by. And then, as part of our activity with producers, SCS buys roughly the equivalent of 450,000 euros of produce for a volume of 2,000 tons. And it's quite important to mention that the main activities here in Mali are import-export activities. So we can continue perhaps to the next slide. So mango is a seasonal activity, and it was important for our company to test and develop so-called secondary crops in order to ensure activity throughout the year, right? Because so the mango activity or season is 3-4 months, right? And so we need to make sure that the producers, farmers have other income sources. So the local market
is based on imports from other countries, are sometimes far away from Mali. So we organized ourselves with our producers, and we have roughly 660 producers, market gardeners, right, that are managed and monitored by our teams, and who are present in the local market. And this will allow us to keep them occupied and increase their revenue throughout the year, and ensure that mainly that they have a revenue throughout the year. So developing our activities has been quite easy, as we are directly we interact directly, sorry, with our farmers, and we work hand in hand on obviously a trust-based relation. And this is obviously a very important aspect of our business. And we also make sure that all the people with whom we interact abide by the right production rules. And we try to work with as many organic products as possible. Next slide, please. Right, thank you. So, since 2012, SCS has been working on business opportunities in the sub-region, thanks to the favorable position and the high demand of products in African countries, right? And due also to the lack of production in other countries. Many African countries import up to 70% of fresh fruits and vegetables. And so we started exports to Gabon and then Morocco. Gabon has been a very interesting market, but unfortunately we had to halt due to transport constraints. And so now we export via San Pedro in the Ivory Coast. And, well, unfortunately, this is one of our weaknesses. The transport infrastructure is a problem. And so this is why we had to slow down this activity. But then, as I said, we also export to Senegal, Mauritania, the Ivory Coast, Burkina. But then, well, we do have some issues there also. And we try to ensure, let's say, activities and goods for everyone, but due to the various issues I mentioned, and namely due to the weaknesses of our transport infrastructure, well, the situation is not that good, and we've been forced to abandon working with some of these countries, and so we focus on the local market, which is easier to manage. So there is a potential in the local market, namely, and the good thing about Mali is that we can produce all year round. Sorry. And we have roughly 360 days of sun, right? And a lot of farming land with the two major rivers in the country. So we have a potential. Now, unfortunately, mainly the political or geopolitical situation is not in our favor. Next slide, please. Right, thank you. So there are many business opportunities in the West African intra-regional area, 70 to 80% of fresh fruits and vegetables are imported. Mali has the production potential to meet this demand for the local market and for neighboring countries, Mauritania, Niger, Ivory Coast, etc. But it does mean many constraints, and we need to overcome these through investment and long-term strategies. We are working on a partnership. It's working on a Dutch program, and this should allow us to strengthen our production. But there is a lack of infrastructure that needs to be taken into account, namely in terms of cold rooms and production equipment. And so we need the financial and technical support to solve these issues. But then there's also constraints, as I already mentioned, linked to transport, high transport costs, and also the entry fees to regional markets. This is obviously a problem. And this, if we add to this the way the markets are organized, it makes our activity and the intra-regional trade very, very complicated. But then there is a big market and a big opportunity for us. But then unfortunately, it's quite difficult to operate in this market. And from time to time, I wonder if it's so difficult for us to work and organize ourselves among a few little number of countries. How are we going to get organized with all the African continent? I think we really need to work on various programs to better structure our activity and our interaction. But it's a very good project, I think, and it is very positive if we manage to implement it. I think it's going to benefit for everyone. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Diakité, for this presentation, and especially for this very interesting feedback from the field. We understand how difficult things can be for you other operators. And
to Michael ANNAN-FORSON. The biodata is put in your chat as well in the interest of time, but basically you will explain to us as from a very, very small business, you made a significant progress in Kenya through your Melach group company on coconut oil, and what has been, in a very short presentation, please, what has been actually your business model and your work. So thank you very much. Please go ahead.
Okay, it's afternoon here. Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me, please?
Yes, yes, we can hear you.
Thank you very much. Isolina, thank you very much.
I need Mohamed with a presentation, please.
Okay. Yeah. Once again, thank you very much, Isolina, and thank you very much, the PAFO, for such an opportunity. This is my first time of having this thing here. I will not take much of your time. I pray I can do this very, very short time. So this presentation, it's about where we started from, and where we are now. And if there is time, perhaps we could talk about where we want to go. So Melach Coconut Processing Farm started in 2007 when I came all the way from Thailand, specifically Bangkok, after spending almost 7 years there in an organization who is solely into coconut processing. So when I came, I was virtually nothing. Then I only rented an apartment with only 1 bedroom and 1 kitchen and 1 hall. So you could see how we started there. I was the only person going all the way to a farm. And I remember I was having almost $4 to $6 with me when I had to go to the farm and purchase some coconuts, wanted to start on my own. So yes, I bought the coconut. I have to send it to a mail, a commercial mailing field for them to mail it for me. So basically that was my kitchen. And that was how I started with the 5 USD buying some fuel. So can we go to the next slide, please? Yes, so from my $5, what happened was that when I produce it, I processed almost like 400 pieces of coconut. Could you imagine 400 pieces of coconut? At the end of the day, I got only 1 liter. When I got the 1 liter, it did not scare me. I did not eat it. I just divided the 1 liter into smaller quantity and gave it to people and said, this is what we want to do. Could you taste it and see if it is good? So they tasted it and realized that was good. Then someone gave me close to like $100 and said, Michael, could you produce some of the oil for me? So that is my second production. I was able to do 10 pieces of coconut oil in 1 liter package and in rubber package. So this is what you could see now. That was in 2008. So he procured it. Then I realized that, wow, I can do better than that. So people, friends and family members were giving their funds and said, Michael, take the money and produce for us. So now it was not my $5 and now raised to $8, but people were giving me small money. Take $2 and produce for me. Take $1 and produce for me. So that was how we started. So it was family and friends giving funds and I produced for them. Then in 2016, I did this for more than 3, 4, 5 years. So then in 2016, someone introduced a social media called LinkedIn and said, Michael, could you send some of your products on LinkedIn and see if it will work? I did send.
We have lost you.
Some of the products on LinkedIn. Then I remember around January, somebody from Israel connected me and said, he mentioned his name, he said he's from Israel and that he has seen our products. Can I produce for him? I said, yes, sure, I can produce. This is from my kitchen. I was like, I said, can you produce like 5 tons for me? I said, yes, I can produce 5 tons. I did not know what would take for me to produce 5 tons. I did not even know what to take the number of coconuts, the machines to produce 5 tons. But I was so bold to take the challenge. I said, yes, I can produce for you. So this man has to send, could you believe, this man has to send 35,000 USD all the way from Tel Aviv and said, produce coconut oil of 10 tons for me. I was like, wow, I would do it. So the moment the funds came into my account, I have to move from where I started, from my chamber and hall, straight to where we are now, straight to Ashanti region. So we moved to Ashanti region to do it. So this is where we rented from Accra to Ashanti region with the $35,000 the Israel customer gave to me. I used just a small portion to rent an apartment. The essence of renting the apartment was to get some standards in place, because if FDA want to register your product, if Ghana Standard Authority want to register your product, they would want to come and see the facility, at least a standard one. That was why we have to rent an apartment. So we rented an apartment. I have to engage the community. It was around 16 females that I brought on board in 2016 to support me in this. So thank God I was able to produce it. Yes, I was not having machines yet. I did not worry myself or rush to buy machines. I was using a commercial mailing center where I bought the coconut and I sent all to that place to mail it for me. Then we process it. It took me 2 months to produce 10 tons for this customer in Israel. He has never seen me before. He has never been to Ghana before. He does not know whether I am real or not. But he trusted me, and within 2 months, I was able to produce a good product to this customer. That was our first customer then, thank God. So then from my Israel customer, I had an opportunity from an organization called Roots Capital. Roots Capital was having a program, a workshop, and they invited me that, could you take part in a workshop that we want to do? So I took part in the workshop. Through the workshop, somebody said, Michael, there was an international organization called DFID, UK and India. They are doing a program, a kind of acceleration program. Can you take part? So I took part in this acceleration program. I learned it's about the whole of Africa. And I was among the 14 entrepreneurs who were selected for the program. So this acceleration program was able to produce a grant of 17,000 USD to buy machines. They were not giving the money to you for you to use it. So they were produced, they gave the fund, they supported in getting the machines and also to travel to India to get a good fabricator. So we bought the machine, came to Ghana, and that was how we started. From 2007, when we were producing just 1 liter, today, Melach Coconut Processing Farm, we are doing coconut shell charcoal. We are doing on a large scale. We do all this on a large scale. Our coconut shell charcoal, we are producing a day like 20 tons. We are also doing coconut shell ash potash, which they use for African soap. So we are doing that. We are also doing coconut porridge, and we are also doing coconut oil. Now, from 2007 as at now, we've been able to expand our customer base. We are producing for customers in Ghana, in Togo, in Ivory Coast, and in Europe, and also in US. And we are doing almost like 30 tons of oil a day. That is our current capacity, 30 tons. And for oil, we are also doing water, coconut water for almost like, we do like 20 tons in a day. So these are the people, the customers we are growing as at today. Thank you. Can you go on to the next one? Yes, so currently, Melach Coconut Processing Farm, from the grants that we received from the UK aid, that was the 17,000. As of today, 2021, we've been able to grow our funds to about 1 million USD, and we are still growing as at today. Today, we have moved from the rented apartment to our own facility. So currently, Melach Coconut Processing Farm is operating from our own facility. We have also started, instead of depending on the farmers to supply us coconut, we have now started growing our own 200 acres of coconut farming currently as at now. We have also increase the farmers we are growing. We are currently working with 100 assets today on the 18th. We have increased our farmers from 166 to 171. Out of this 171, we have only 11 of them who are male, and the rest are all female. We are also supporting a lot of people. We are supporting orphanages now. So currently, this is Melach Coconut Processing Farm from a chamber and a hall rented apartment. Today, we have our own facility where we did not owe any bank. We don't owe any bank. We don't owe anyone. Today, we are exporting on large scale. Like I told you, our currently our minimum production of coconut oil, and this is organic certified coconut oil. We produce 30 tons a day. We are exporting to Netherlands, we are exporting to US, we are exporting to Ivory Coast, we are exporting to Nigeria, and Ghana is also doing a lot. We produce on a very large scale. This is where we are at Melach Coconut Processing Farm. Yes, so I would like to end with our main where we are now. What's made us to be where we are now? Like I told you, we don't owe any bank. We've never took any bank facility before. All these programs that we are doing, all these projects are coming from our own IGF, from our own internal generating fund. And the reason is because of integrity. We respected integrity so much, no matter where the customer is coming from, whether the person is paying $1, whether the person is paying $100 million, integrity has been our #1 mark. The next one is focus. We remain focused to where we want to go. We remembered from our kitchen and where we are now and where we want to go. The next one is quality product. This is what I want Africa to hold on. If Africa want to go beyond the world, if Africa want to do better, if the AfCFTA want to do better, product quality should not be underestimated. And that has been our hallmark. We have invested a lot into certification, getting organic certification, getting kosher certification, getting fair for life certification, because we want to grow beyond only Africa. And that last one is about swift delivery. When a customer asks us to deliver in 10 days, we deliver in 5 days. These are our 4 main reasons why Melach Coconut Processing Farm is growing. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Michael. We are very delayed, but it's very, very actually interesting to see that is really by yourselves and the private sector with very little aid and assistance that makes the difference. So the very, very quickly, Dan Jakana. Now we go to Uganda, same founder of a fruit processing company in 1994, very successful today and expanding. Dan, are you ready? I see that there are many questions as well answered now by our panelists direct, so that will save us some time as well for the discussion. And I need Mohamed to put the PowerPoint, please. Dan, are you ready? I cannot hear you or see you. Dan Jakana? If not, we have to Dan? I don't know, Mohamed, if we can do something. If not, we will have to go come back. Oh, yes. Dan, please unmute yourself. We cannot hear you. Dan? You have to unmute yourself.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, now we can hear you. Thank you very much.
You can hear me and you can see me?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, my name is Dan Jakana, Jakana Foods. We are based in Kampala, Uganda. And as you can see, that's our operation, our structure, our plant facility. We are engaged in value addition. And as you can see over there, this is our GM managing director, Meg. Meg comes from the States. That's where I was also based for a long time. And we believe in value addition, adding value to our products. For so long, we observed exporting items in their raw form. That was for us, that was a no-no. And that goes back to our background from where we come from. And Uganda is endowed with so much fruit-wise. I had the gentleman, I think Moussa's talking about mangoes and all that stuff. We have quite a lot of these things, and we also do have apparently 2 seasons in Uganda. We are exactly on the equator, so that gives an added advantage, you know. So in sourcing these items, we've worked with farmers. We have a bunch of farmers. We are in approximately about 500. Apparently, I'm going to go with this thing as we move around. You see the van there with those little kids. Now, that van was an idea I put together, and I said, in about 20 years' time, if I can put out a popsicle van, that is those small items that you eat as you go along, from wastage. There's no point of wasting items. We can juice the pineapples, make fruit juice. Out of the fruit skin, out of the peelings, you can, apply heat and whatever and color them up and put them in this van. And this van moved around, and it had our logo on it, And right now, 20 years later, most of these people are grown now. They are fathers, mothers, and whatnot, and they believe in the Jakana in the Jakana symbol. We do dry fruit, as you can see in moving rapidly. We do also we do natural fruit juice, and we also do packaging. We introduced fruit juice as an item because we were importing a lot of. Uganda was importing, or in the region we are, a lot of drinks like sodas and whatnot. And we already knew that there was no nutritional values in a lot of these things. And I said, we already grow these items here. Why don't we juice them? Okay, so we did that, and we have our brand. As you can see, we introduced the packaging. Now, this packaging, we're the first company to bring this into Uganda. We also brought the machine that does that. So we make this packaging right here, and we also sell to other people who are also in this business. So we have some packaging going into Tanzania. We have some going into, we've done Rwanda, Burundi, we've done some. It goes on the buses, as and also the dry fruit, as you can see on the other end, we also package it. A lot of the dry fruit goes overseas, but we are also making a very big attempt to do cross-border business. And in that regards, it's been a very welcoming matter. I had a gentleman who was talking about some challenges cross borders. We are leaving a lot of these items to our people in the political office, but the businessman is a businessman, and he will always cross the borders, hook or crook. I don't mean that we cross the border in by not following the rules, but it's been a very, very big challenge. Now, as you see here in our chart, you see this lady here with the pineapples, and we offer a very good extension service to our farmers. As I mentioned earlier, there are about 500 that are joining us in this supply chain. And as you go further across, this is some of our packaging. Our packaging is made right here at Jakana, and we also have certification. We train our employees. We also extend our training to the farmers. As we talk right now, we have some extension people out in the field, talking to the farmers, educating them, making the items a very, up to certification, up to standards. We maintain very good standards, at Jakana. As we said earlier in our presentation, we started in 1994. We've been in business for about 25 some years. We are very well known in our region now. and we would like to extend and expand our business, But I gotta say this, is we can have goods into the EU market in North America within 12 hours because they go by air. But logistically, our challenges in Africa is getting the logistics into DRC. It takes quite a bit of time running trucks and all that kind of stuff, But I'm hoping that, in the very near future, this will come to market. You see here, the time to market. We take, for example, in Uganda, we can get into the market a little bit more easy. We've taken products into Kigali, I believe on the buses, those that go there. The market brand, the Jakana brand is pretty much known around, in Tanzania, in Kenya. We've done the supermarkets. I could name the Uchumis, the Nakmats, and you name it. And then plus quite a bit of the gas station, the petrol station supermarkets. We do quite a bit of those. And as I said, we do we emphasize on maintaining the standards. And this is done through education, through training, and we put a lot of emphasis on this item. So in a nutshell, all these brands, this has come around to put the Jakana quality name on the market. And it makes it a little bit more easier as the supplies that we get from the farmers, moving them along the line, and quality, packaging them in the right form, and then getting them to the ultimate consumer. And a lot of people who consume our products either have seen them overseas, and then overseas we don't use our Jakana brand. We use the market brand that's already there. In Africa, we are trying to get the brand across the borders to smoothen that operation, That's been a challenge, but we are working on it, and we are very determined, and there's no doubt in my mind, as the young people come across, these brands and enjoy these products, it opens up markets, not just for us, but remember, it goes back to the ultimate, the farmers who are key in making this happen. Can we go to the next one, please? Okay. And I think lastly, but not least, you can see increasing our capacity is very key. We are limited in a way in a monthly capacity due to the lack of quality, getting the quality items. Because don't get me wrong that you can bring a non-quality product into the plant, and then the plant will process into a better. The quality starts at the farm level. We have to have that, and the demand is increasing undoubtedly. As I told you, we do take items mostly a lot overseas, but also the items that are needed in the local market. So that is a challenge. And also our factory has been around for 25 some years. It needs to be updated. Equipment needs to be updated. As long as we talk about the free trade market in Africa, a lot of these things will have to be looked at. When we look at it, and we need to improve them as we go along, we are key, and not just us. Even the other companies that are coming along will have to be players in this regard. So certification, which we have. As I say, we do the other market, the EU market, the North American market. Now we want to do Africa. We want the African market to be integrated because we have these items. There's no point of getting stuff from the other end and bringing it over here when we in Africa, as a local producer, we have them. So we need your support. And as I said, not just, but as we Africans, as we get to improve and and become big players in this, this will become to play. I do thank you for listening, and if you have any questions, don't hesitate to get back to me. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Jakana. Very, very interesting presentation as well. So without major delay now, that then we can have a discussion because we are a bit late, and I would be very grateful if the discussants can shorten their time. We have three. We have Prudence SEBAHIZI, who is the Chief Technical Advisor of the Africa Continental Trade Agreement at the African Union Commission, and of course he has been from previous assignments as well in his country and in the region, very, very familiar with free trade agreements, including at the Eastern African region. We have Lucy MUCHOKI from the Pan-African Agribusiness perspective and agro-industry, and we have Remco from the European Commission, with, of course, a very strong partner of the African Union Commission from the policy side. But of course, we all knew as well that the European Commission is one of the lead donors, and in particular also to the private sector. So Prudence, please, you have heard a lot. And I'm sure that from your experience, and not only from what has been done at the African Union Commission so far, but more importantly on what will be done also in the coming months or years to support the SMEs and other businesses, a bit of your insights. And of course, counting on PAFO and COLEACP as well in that route ahead. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Selina, for that kind introduction, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm very happy to be part of this conversation, and I'm very, very much encouraged by the presentations that we have followed, both from the consultant John Bosco KANYANGOGA, whom I have worked with before, and the testimonies, actually the more encouraging testimonies that we have received from Moussa with regard to his own experience, from Michael with the cocoa experience, and now from Dan Jakana. This is very encouraging. I was going to alarm the audience about the challenges that we have as a continent. But now I feel very much encouraged to see that we have people who are on the ground, who are doing great work, and I congratulate all of you. Let me start my conversation with a paradox which we always see when trying to make policies of the continent. We know that from statistics, Africa is the world's second largest and second most populous continent on Earth. We know that the population of Africa will reach 2 billion by the year 2050. We know that Africa is rich in terms of natural resources. Actually, it is estimated that Africa holds about 30% of the remaining Earth mineral resources. But yet, looking at the economic development, Africa remains the world's poorest and most underdeveloped continent. So this is a shame. Another paradox which I also want to link to my discussion is that Africa accounts for more than 60% of the world uncultivated arable land. And we also had that agriculture contributes to an average of 30 to 60% of the GDP of Africa. But yet, we see Africa as a net importer of food. And recently, the studies have estimated that Africa import bill is currently over $35 billion a year. And this is even projected to increase up to $110 billion by 2025. And I think this is something that we should not take lightly. We have to look at it seriously from policy perspective. I have followed and analyzed very carefully the challenges that farmers are facing today. And most of them are related to market structures, both access to the market but also terms of trade. I think this is very important, not only access to the market, but look at the terms of trade. How do African farmers benefit from the efforts that they make? When they export their products to the international market, how much do they get in return? I think this is very, very important to look at the terms of trade when it comes to supplying the international market. We have seen challenges related to poor infrastructure. Of course, this affects all farmers across Africa. There is poor irrigation system, there is poor mechanization system, and farmers are not able to grow. We have lack of adequate technology when it comes to the entire supply chain. Especially, we have seen that farmers, they suffer a lot from the post-harvest losses. I was reading the report by the FAO, the Food and Agriculture Organization of the UN, and the report was saying that the percentage of food loss after harvest on farm and at the transport, storage, and processing stages stand at 13.8% globally, which is over $400 billion a year. So this is a huge loss, and this is due to the poor technology, poor infrastructure that is made available to the farmers. Now, what is AfCFTA bringing? We know that AfCFTA is presenting opportunities to farmers by integrating the market of the continent, which is very important. The AfCFTA is creating a free trade area. It means that the challenges that farmers have been facing trying to access international market can be resolved within the continent and allow farmers to access the market easily. And those challenges that I have mentioned in my introduction can still be addressed within the AfCFTA market. Recently, we have seen the study by World Bank, which has estimated the positive impact of the AfCFTA on economy of Africa at macroeconomic level, that the AfCFTA is going to bring about $450 billion on the Africa's output, growing the Africa's economy by 7%. I think this is good news. But AfCFTA is not stopping there. AfCFTA is also going to look at the welfare of the people. The study has shown that AfCFTA, if well implemented, it is going to lift up to 30 million people from Africa out of extreme poverty, and another 68 million people out of moderate poverty. So in total, we are looking at lifting about 100 million people out of poverty if we implement fully the AfCFTA. But this cannot only be achieved by access to the market. We need to come up with serious strategies and policies that will address the supply side constraints, because AfCFTA is a market, but we need to produce for that market. So I would like to emphasize that the African Union policy is to promote Africa's manufactured goods and services. We have a market, but we also have to promote Africa's manufactured goods. And this can only be achieved by putting in place policies such as the SMEs policy, which has already been developed by African Union, and it aims to address some of those challenges to allow farmers to integrate into the regional and continental value chain and supply the AfCFTA market. But also looking at some other issues related to access to finance, access to infrastructure, access to knowledge. It's very important to understand that farmers need to have access to adequate knowledge if they have to really become competitive. The AfCFTA is going to make Africa a competitive continent. If you don't have adequate skills, you are not going to compete on that market. So let me leave it here for now. to allow other discussants, but that's what I want to introduce in my intervention. Thank you.
Thank you very much for highlighting the paradox of, they do better on export, which are very, very demanding markets sometimes, than trying to sell to the neighbors. And of course, on the skills, that's one of the area where COLEACP with PAFO and others is working hard, but not enough. It's always more and more demand. Lucy, can we have a very short words from your side, from your experience as a business entrepreneur, association of entrepreneurs, and of course you are involved also on many of the policy dialogues at the African Union side, but also with the European circles. Lucy?
Thank you, Salina. Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. It's my great pleasure to be with you here today, and thank you very much for organizing this particular dialogue. And indeed, time to discuss SMEs, time to discuss our farmers. It's very critical. I've listened to the various discussions. Just like my colleague Prudence, I'm very impressed to see how our SMEs are trying and are putting a lot of effort. We are not just sitting. Africa realizes they have to work, they have to do what they have to do. And we know that this is really our time, but we can't do it alone. We need to do it together with our partners. But coming back to the topic of the SME, as you mentioned, yes, we are a platform formed some years back, and our relationship was based in a partnership with the FARA, Forum for Agricultural Research in Africa, because we believe the biggest problem we have in Africa is that the one hand does not see the other hand. And therefore, there are different activities taking place and different people working, and there's no coordination. There's so many silos. And this is where the beginning of the issues, the beginning of the problems, and so on and forth. So indeed, we know that we have what it takes. We have the land, as Prudence said. Yes, 60% of the arable land. I don't have to repeat that. We have very good climate. That is a continent which is divided equally by the equator, meaning that we can plant different crops across the year, but we still continue importing, as he said, more than 43 billion billion worth of food. It can't go on like this. We need to feed our people. And we know by 2020, our population is doubling. But what is very important here is who is doing majority of the work, the coordination, the transportation of food. It is the SMEs. But who really understand what are the issues, what are the problems of SMEs? And that is why our platform, we are here. And we have now, more than ever before, with the coming in of AfCFTA, we want to ensure that we empower, we ensure that we are sharing information so that we can be able to take advantage of these new arrangements of the AfCFTA. First, to begin with, where are these technologies that we are talking about? When an SME comes into business, where does she start from? Where is the finance? I've had a good story from the coconut. They didn't need any finance, but that's very different. Every business to start off always will require some finance, but they require finance and they need the guarantee. The banks need guarantee, but who wants to finance startups? Who want to finance an organization? You're not sure they're going to make it. More than every 5 SMEs, 4 fail. So most banks are very shy in financing SMEs. So that is why we need a consolidated information data on where do we have all this information? Where are these markets? What are the markets look like? Where are we going? How do we access this market? So just like Prudence said, now we know we are going to have this big market under the AfCFTA. They're talking of more than 11 billion US dollars in a few months, and but so much needs to be done. What really needs to be done? Africa has more than 42 currencies that they're using. So the challenges are still not over. How are we going to ensure that we can be able to trade? How are we going to be able to use the digital platforms? Because without the right infrastructure, we can't be able to do as much trade as we propose. These are just some of the few thoughts that I have. And lastly, and very importantly, the fact that we have all these raw products that we export to Europe. We would love to also encourage our partners from Europe. Can we partner? Can we also try and do some more business together, even here in Africa? I'm sure that we can really do good partnerships because this is the way to go. However, we must also be clear what are the kind of standards, what kind of capacity does Africa need? What is the role of the government in facilitating these policies, the environment, conducive environment for these partnerships? I've seen so many partners who come to Africa and they're unable to survive. So the government must support the investments, invest from Europe and other part of the world to be able to spur and build the SMEs in this part of the country, and so that we can also be able to trade with each other. We see how Kenya, for instance, has done very well in accessing the markets for flowers, for horticulture in Europe, and other countries are starting to do the same. We have seen now it's not just the big companies which are accessing export markets in Europe. We also now recognize that SMEs are also accessing markets in Europe. So why would the SMEs not be able to access the same markets across this continent? So indeed, the standards have been set, but we need to ensure that Africa also has one agreed standard. Just like the way we have the Africa EU standard, is a high time we also came with our own Africa standards so that we can be able to be guided when we are trading with each other. I have listened the Secretary General for AfCFTA. He's around in Nairobi and he's doing a very good job. He's trying to fundraise so that we can try and pool funds together that can ensure that our SMEs are financed and there's guarantee from the governments. As yet again, I want to reemphasize, it's so important that the government has to play their role. So is the banks, and so will the SMEs as part. Lastly, and most importantly, let the SMEs learn to work with one another. They cannot continue working in silos because they'll never have standards. They'll never have quality and quantities. They need to aggregate. They need to cluster so that they can be able to access what we call, we need them to access a lot of services, and most of the services are scattered. But when you cluster under special economic zones, the agro-food banks, I feel that is how we'll start transforming our African SMEs, and also ensuring that we are going to support our digitalization. I don't want to talk much. A lot has been said, but this is a very important discussion, and moving forward, I look to discussing more and engaging our farmers through PAFO and COLEACP works with us. We are happy to have opened an office in Nairobi for Africa, and we know that with this, we can access and help our SMEs to achieve these standards that we are talking about, an office that is going to support not Kenya, but Africa as a continent. Thank you very much. Asante sana.
Asante sana. Thank you very much, Lucy, because they are very good additions to what Prudence has said on finance, on the need, you know, to also to trade with actually with the EU counterparts, which is one of the core areas of COLEACP, but also what we want to upscale with the PAFO and other partners. And this link very well with Remco, because within the partnership with Africa, Union, EU, there would be, of course, we are in COVID times, but they have been long-standing private also sector meetings, which I hope will continue because they were of great value as well in exchange with the EU counterparts, not only for markets, but also, you know, for knowledge, skills, etc. Remco, happy to see you because it has been a while actually because of the COVID time. So if you can share a few insights, please, from the European Commission here.
All right. Thank you, Isolina. Welcome, discussants, panelists, and audience. In fact, I'm really pleased and honored to be among you. The people who are making Africa move and who are working to make sure that this African Continental Free Trade Area is going to be a success. And there is lots of ways in which the European Union can be a partner. Because all these great people already said it, we need partners, and the European Union is suggesting that perhaps it can be one of these partners. I will also welcome the study that was presented. I think there are some really excellent recommendations in there. I'm not going to go through them one by one because I know, Isolina, that you are so pushed for time, and there are so many good people who will want to ask their questions, etc. So the other thing I'm not going to do, but it's important that you know, and Isolina already mentioned it, the European Union has direct support for private sector engaged in Africa in general, and agribusiness and farmers organizations in particular. And many of your guests, Isolina, will know more about this than I. And it's not a topic you asked me to talk about. No, what I want to really focus on is to be a bit specific about the different ways in which the European Union is proposing itself as a partner on this enormous flagship project of the African Union, which is the African Continental Free Trade Area. And I will start with the financial side because it is perhaps the most visible one, but doesn't mean that it's necessarily the most important one. 74 million euros were already put aside to help the African partners negotiate and put into practice the African Continental Free Trade Area. And I don't want to dwell on the numbers, but I think the ways in which this is done, and I'm talking about the continental level, reflect to an extent also the importance of the private sector and, as they say, of non-state actors in getting involved. And there are a few things there that I think your audience will find interesting. So roughly speaking, you can say that so far 26 million euro have been spent on support to negotiations, and maybe 40 million could be classified as more being about implementation. And as somebody very rightly said, I think it was Mr. John Bosco, there is scope in both these processes for non-state actors to get involved and to have their voices heard and to make their contribution. And so, for instance, we work with the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa to help roll out the African Continental Free Trade Area and to extol the benefits in the different countries. And of course, this has to be done not in a vacuum, but in dialogue, direct dialogue with stakeholders. And stakeholders is just another word for businesses, civil society organization, people. And so in the design of the European Union support, the involvement of these actors, they say, is very much involved. There is an institution being set up, which is called the African Union Trade Observatory. And it's not an ivory tower. It's a platform where people and also businesses can get information about what's really happening under the African Continental Free Trade Area. It's not a European project. It's something that the African Union is doing, but we are supporting that. So there are just two examples from the support to negotiations. If we look at support to implementation, I thought it was interesting to highlight maybe three things. One, the European Union is supporting another African Union project, which is the geographical indication strategy. You know, a very important way of adding value to agriculture activity, and we're supporting that. The European Union is supporting another thing that's run very much by Africans, which is implementation strategies. African Continental Free Trade Area implementation strategies. These are now very necessary to make sure that things happen and happen in the right way. We are offering some support to rolling that out throughout the continent. And of course, these strategies, again, need to be drawn up, not in a vacuum, but with the people who are going to work with that and who are going to make that work. And last but not least, on the implementation side, there is a major component of our support which aims, and I will summarize, at strengthening what they call the governance of Africa's sanitary and phytosanitary systems. And we know that crossing or trading is not just about tariffs, it's very much also about those norms and standards. So yes, that was about support on the money side, but I really wanted to focus on what's happening there that could be relevant to your audience here today. The European Union also has some experience in these matters in its own integration process, which is of course different, but we have faced challenges that African partners have also faced in the regional economic communities or at continental level. And there is a scope, I think, for technical support and technical cooperation. And we are very much ready and available to generously provide that. So politically also we're fully aligned. There's a number of documents that I could refer to, and that is not for now. There's just one other aspect that I want to touch upon. Because some people ask, yes, but how does this African Continental Free Trade Area relate to the trade agreements that the European Union has with African countries in North Africa or in Sub-Saharan Africa? And how is this compatible? And they're not talking about technical compatibility, because we know that you can have overlapping free trade, that you have some ways of benefiting from free trade when you trade with your neighbor, and another way when you trade with, for instance, a big overseas market like the European Union. And so what we are trying to do there is really to continue to create new opportunities for African and European business, using similar tools, pursuing similar objectives, and it's a conversation that is ongoing with the objective very much for these trade agreements that the EU is responsible for on its side, for them to be synergetic and to be building blocks for what the African Union itself has decided to do, which is this African Continental Free Trade Area. With that, Isolina, I will stop. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Remco. And in the implementation strategies and practical support, so you know that will follow, of course, that it will be more regional, local, etc. And we will be happy again to be involved. I saw many exchanges. It seems like a very active group actually today. I see some also, Fatma, of course, of the networks. I see the CEO of EAFF and the president of ROPA, and I really greet you, all of you, I mean, because we are very close, and we are very happy that you can be with us in the very busy schedule. But Fatma, I'm sure that it was not an easy task for you to summarize some of the questions now for our panelists. Some, and I thank you, you have been answering some already in the chat, but Fatma, could you summarize some of the ones burning from this very hyperactive group we have today?
Yes, I will try, Isolina, and I hope my connection will remain stable. since it's raining in Kigali, and I hope you are following me. So, and I apologize with the translators because I'm going to switch from one language to another. So first, as a reminder for all who have asked the presentations, the PowerPoints, the links, the recording of this session, we are going to share all this with you later. So don't worry, we are going to follow up and to give you all these links. First, let me go in general remarks. So is there an ongoing discussion about the use of blockchain technology for solving challenges related to tariffs, rules of origin, etc.? And if so, what is the positioning of African Union and member states? I'm going back to the questions, very specific questions, but so when we are going to give a little bit more support and to youth, and here perhaps Mr. Mohamed, we are going in one of our sessions, we are going to focus a little bit more on youth, on structures, financing youth, etc. So please keep following us because it's in our program of the innovation sessions. Les problèmes transfrontaliers, donc là c'est une question.
Trans-border issues. So this is a question that has been asked quite a lot with regards to trade. How can we manage these trans-border issues, and how can we imagine a free trade area if these issues remain?
Overcome the payment challenges within Africa and the tax challenges as well to implement the free movement of products, but I will add the services as well. What will be the impact of COVID on this free trade area? What is the agenda for implementing the 2 phases of the African Free Trade Area? What else? Gideon, thank you to be with us, and he's mentioning that there are still challenges. Intra-regional trade import bill are very significant. So how to ensure that there's stability of trade policies, how we can advocate towards financial service providers as well. So these are very general. Let me give perhaps some questions, and thank you for our panelists who have answered directly in the chat or in the question and answer part. Some questions, Monsieur Diakité, vous avez déjà répondu, mais
Mr. Diakité, you have already answered some questions, but I think it's very important for those of us who are following us to have a really good understanding about organic production. How how do you manage pests and fruit fly and so on? I think it's very important to provide answers, but it's very interesting to see what you've been able to discuss in the chat already. Now, processing, do you do processing? You answered no, but the question is being asked again. Why do you not do fruit processing? What are the organizations, or how do Mali national organizations support you? How have they supported you in the past? How have they been involved in this free trade approach?
So for Michael, any other product? So you are producing the same product from 2008 to 2015, and was it enough for you? So this is a big question because it's the same product, and they are curious to know how you are improving your business, how you can improve, valorize also the waste of the coconut, of the cocoa. Also, Mr. Bambara has asked if your cocoa oil is analyzed in a laboratory to have an idea on its nutritive value. And for Dan, Jakana, so there are a lot of questions regarding the model of exportation. It's pushing, so your model is pushing how we can change from exporting raw material and have a better exchange. What are the main problems and how do you see the benefits of the African Free Trade Area? So these are really very summarized questions and answers. And please, perhaps it's the way to think together, Isolina, to create a blog of exchange after such sessions. So please, our technicians, you can help us to find such a solution because there are a lot of exchanges on this. Thank you, Isolina.
Yes, yes. We cannot go into detail for each of the businesses. Indeed, it could be more bilaterals that we can facilitate afterwards. I saw many requests for kind of platforms of exchange, and I'm pleased that this is appreciated. So perhaps as now giving back the floor to the panelists and perhaps starting in the same order, or who wants the floor, what we could conclude on the topic of today, because we will have many others. Like I saw actually the question from blockchain is one of my former colleagues in my previous job, I think Filippo, hello, he was from FAO before. We will have also dedicated sessions for the ICTs and digital tools in support, of course, of the entrepreneurs, which is our main concern. Perhaps for the three businesses today, perhaps if you could say if you have one or two priorities within the implementation of the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement that you would, as an operator, would like to see solved or address. I think that could practical ones that we could convey perhaps to our counterparts, and of course any other thing you want to conclude. Of course, for Prudence, you have a lot to carry to your colleagues also and to the implementation part, but clear ones, the transborder, you saw that the operators are very much, if they have reached the EU markets, which are very, very competitive and demanding, they are even more willing, of course, to expand into regional and continental markets in Africa. But still, they have the cross-border problems, SPS issues, etc. What are the key, from a private sector perspective, what are the key topics that you are going to handle or to consult perhaps the industry in the coming months? Or could we have a follow-up conversation where, if it's not today, we could convey the responses? And if the COVID-19 indeed the impact will delay very much, perhaps you can take this question. For Remco, as part, of course, of the implementation and as part of the support to the entrepreneurs, perhaps we could come with some initiatives or some. I know that on finance as well, you are supporting through some of the blending mechanisms, although sometimes it's not completely at reach of the small scale operators as well. But I know that some efforts are done on this part, and on the negotiation, as far as you are concerned, from the non-state actors, which include the private sector, perhaps to have to include them more in the coming sessions this year and next year. That some practicalities, as you mentioned yourself, GIs, we have got with Fatma many requests for geographical indications, but still they are unaware and not enough information on that. So perhaps the way to go is not to solve today, obviously, but to have groups of operators that could discuss with you. So these are just some ideas on how you can get some of the questions forward. And of course, Lucy, you have mentioned many of those, but from your experience already, being well, we are glad you are in Kenya, because KOLEACP has also a big office in Kenya now. How we could get that exchange forward. So perhaps I start, Monsieur DIAKITÉ, and then Jeremy, if you could give us after them some also insights, because you have been listening carefully and you didn't want to speak before in the interest of time, but if you could give us some insights as well. Monsieur DIAKITÉ, peut-être.
Mr. DIAKITÉ, if you want to start, perhaps one or two things, right? What is a priority for you so that the people who are in charge of implementing the agreement could take into account? Well, yes, perhaps they could allow us to improve free circulation, a free movement. This is very, very important because laws, okay, right. But I think it's easier to go from Bamako to Paris than to go from Bamako to Abidjan. How can you explain that, right? How is this possible? I think this is really very important to tackle this issue. And then, yeah, we need to organize the markets. These are the two main issues, I guess. All right, thank you very much. Anything else you'd like to add? Very briefly, Mr. DIAKITÉ? Or should we continue with Michael then? Yeah, please go on. Thank you very much. I'm done. Thank you.
One or two things that, of course, you can share, I mean, in the chat, or perhaps all the details about the nutritional values and the laboratory you use, etc. Because obviously, exporting at such level, you have, stringent, I mean, standards in place. But on the ways on which, as operator, we saw your success, and you would like our friends Prudence and his colleagues to move forward in supporting the operators, what would be your top one or two actions? If you unmute, please, Michael.
Okay, is it done? Thank you very much, Isolina. Yes, regarding certification and information, the value information, yes, we take it very, very serious. We have an organization in Belgium called Primoris Laboratory International. They handle our laboratory analysis. So, for one to be called organic certified, it is not just the name. It should be certified by getting a right laboratory organization. So Primoris in Belgium is handling all our laboratory analysis. Certification is being done by the Control Union. Control Union handles all our certification. Then we have EcoSet. EcoSet is handling all our fair trade, fair for life certification. Now back to funding and for Africa. You see, we cannot do everything with money. We should not expect the Europeans always that, where do we get funding to do this? Where do we get money to do it? Let's take time to grow. Tell entrepreneurs not to look for funding from Europe, from whoever. Tell the entrepreneurs that they should take time to grow. Take time to understand. Meat is very good, but you cannot give meat to a one-day-old born baby until you get to that age. So take your time. COLEACP should come on board. PAFA should come on board. Educate these entrepreneurs to understand that it is not all about money. When we started, we knew that the banks will not mind us. So we never thought of going to the bank for money. But I took time to go hungry and use my $1 to produce. Today, Stanbic Bank is running, knocking on our doors for money. Today, Standard Chartered are knocking on our doors to money. Why? Because we took time to grow, and now they are running to us to give us fundings to expand our business, of which we are not even minding them. So that is one. The next thing, when it comes to the free trade, which is coming on board, I was telling partners that this African Continental Free Trade Area, which is coming, is like a blessing and a curse. It's a blessing and a curse in a way that for countries which does not take the opportunity other countries who have taken the opportunities will come and overtake your country with their product, and you cannot stop them. So what do? This is the time we got to put right things in right. Africa must learn to do right. Africa must learn to produce right. Africa must learn to respect integrity, even when nobody is watching. In your products, as a farmer, you learn to produce right. If you call yourself organic certified, you must respect to be organic certified. The reason why these international organizations are not responding and respecting that is because we lack the integrity. If you said you want to go into African Continental Free Trade, we must respect integrity. We must add value to our product. Don't produce shallow product and expect it to send to Kenya or expect it to send to whoever country it is. Stand wherever you are, go excellent. Produce as if you are sending it to God. That is that. And with this, Africa can grow beyond that. But if you don't do this and you talk about funding from banks, bank will not mind you. Take your time, grow gradually, put value into your product, produce excellent. If it is not excellent, don't send it to LinkedIn. Don't send it to the international market. If it is not excellent, and respect integrity. If Africa can do that, I can assure you we will take over. When it comes to the Africa Continental Free Trade, I know you said thank you, but last one, Isolina, last one. If we don't take the opportunity right now, you will collapse. For us, we are taking opportunity in Togo. We are taking opportunity in Mali. We are taking opportunity in Ivory Coast. We are taking opportunities all over because we ensure we will do what they want us to do. What do they want us to do? Certification. Make sure your product is excellent. It meets our standard. They will run for it without you thinking about how can I send my product there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michael. And I can just repeat something I'm seeing in the chat. Words of wisdom, Michael, well said. So now we go to Dan, please. Dan, the one or two things from your part, or is
yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, Mike, thanks for that scoop right there. I'm sure our leaders right here can take a few pointers from over right there. I gotta say this, we have potential, ain't no doubt about that. But these cross-border issues are very, very challenging. Having lived overseas myself for a while, and I seen a great country where you have 50 states, 50 countries crossing borders. You can cross the border unchallenged, take your goods unchallenged, But here, this is a very, very big problem. And if we are going to grow this by just using the small traders, we have a long way to go. Now we have businesses that have been set up. They're structured. Some of us are doing business exporting, across continents. But then you come down back to Africa, whereby just going to the DRC, you can move a truck and the truck can spend 2-3 days trying to negotiate going across the border. And as a businessman, how many of us have that kind of time? When your goods are packed across, you're paying the driver, you're picking the tank boy, So this is going to be still going to be a big challenge. And I am calling on the people who are trying to help us integrate this thing. If we're going to be serious, you got to be serious players. We have about 42 currencies. Imagine 42 currencies. If we need to use the euro, let's use the euro. If you use the dollar, let's use the dollar. Because these currencies going across the bank, trying to get into the shillings, and then changing into the francs, and then they tell you have to change it into dollars first. And when it gets over there, then they can cash it into the other currency. These are all challenges that are not taking us nowhere. Let's get real. I mean, the world is upon us here. Our young people are looking at us. We got to set these examples. Something has to break. I call upon the people who implementing these, free trade zones, whatever, free trade across the border. Let's get serious. And Mike, I salute you on this thing about, being honest and being truthful. It's a big challenge here. We have some ways to go, but we can make it happen because we have the goods and we have the know-how now. And all we need to do is shoot straight. Let's be honest with each other. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dan. Thank you. Prudence, from what I said, perhaps there are things obviously we cannot solve today, but there are two main things. One is probably, and including from indeed a very good study from PAFO, lack of awareness or information of what about the ACFTA and what it entails specifically for the private sector. And two, which is derived from the first one, is also taking into account the specific needs, from the private sector itself, which goes again from cross-border to SPS, etc. So please, Prudence, could you give us some of the things on way forward, perhaps?
Yes, thank you very much. Let me also
Prudence, we cannot hear you, or perhaps it's me, but Prudence, I cannot hear you very well. No, Prudence, you have a connection. What I suggest, in the interest, Prudence, we cannot
receive from the private sector. Yes, I agree with the recommendation.
Prudence?
You can't hear me?
Now it seems better, but we lost you. Hello? Yes. Yes, now it seems better. Go on.
Can anyone hear me?
Now, yes.
You can't?
Yes, now, yes. Now we can, Prudence. Go on. So while he's sorting this, perhaps a quick word from Lucy, and we get back then to Prudence. Lucy, please.
Yes. Thank you very much. This was kind and this was good. Just to summarize up, I'm very clear that what Africa need, we need an African phytosanitary standard. And I think, COLEACP, this is your role to work with us and hold our hands. You have done that before, and we can still do it again so that we can be able to make the AfCFTA workable. We need to look at the digitalization, and I think we can still work with you on this, ensuring that we look at the blockchain. These are the modern way of working, and it will take us away, quite far. And lastly, I still insist, finance is very critical. Yes, some people find themselves lucky. You can set up a business without finance and you make it, but majority of businesses require constant financing to start off and to sustain it, to grow it, to upscale it, outscale it. But what we require is affordable finance and with a guarantee scheme. Can we work together on this? And lastly, and most importantly, we need the data on the SMEs. We need to understand our productivity, and we need to strengthen our platforms so that we can be able to be of help. We can be able to get this information which members are looking for. Can we work together on this, COLEACP? Thank you very much and have a blessed evening.
Thank you very much, Lucy. I reiterate that on the digital, specifically the application for SMEs and very concrete, we will have a dedicated session with PAFO on that, so we'll count on you as well. Prudence, just alert me when you are ready with you.
Yes,
you are.
I think I can be heard now. Unfortunately, I will not put my camera on. I think
no problem.
Yes, I was having some challenges with internet. So let me state that I'm very much encouraged by the concluding remarks by the panelists as well as the business operators. I agree with you that we need to raise awareness. This recommendation is very important, and I see awareness that needs
Prudence, Prudence, we cannot. Mohamed, please, if you can mute Prudence and tell him that we cannot hear. Yes, please. So, and then we get back to you anyway. You can also conclude, Prudence. Remco, all the eyes are also on you as the way forward and some of the work that we could, we SMEs, partners, etc., could do together. Please, Mohamed, can you mute, please? Prudence, we cannot hear him properly. Remco?
The first one is that we have to make sure that they're to everyone. And hear me, so you can't hear me.
Now I can hear you. Prudence? I was suggesting, if not, you check a bit and we not to lose time, we go with the other speakers and we get back to you at the end. While you sort.
Yes, no problem. I will wait. I will wait.
Yes, thank you. Remco, please.
Thank you.
Apologies, Remco.
No. Listen, I think it's very important that we hear from Prudence and from the African Union Commission and from the AfCFTA Secretariat in Accra. These people are doing tremendous work. They are they're rolling out the African Continental Free Trade Area. They're building an SME strategy. They're doing all the right things. And what we are doing basically is to try and offer our support. It's not us that are deciding that the farmers' organizations should be consulted, or that public dialogue must be part of the concept. That is very much their product, their idea, and we agree with that and we support that. But it's not us, let's say, who should talk about this first. So what we will continue to do is look for specific ways of making trade and investment flow throughout Africa. And we need the sort of feedback that we've been having today to identify those value chains that have the most potential, to zoom in on those obstacles that are really holding us back. And the support will continue to flow, and at all levels, the national level, the regional level, the continental level, which is exactly also where the PAFO study tells us to concentrate our efforts. At continental level, yes, but also at regional level and also at national level. And if we can be partners there, I think we will be very satisfied. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Remco. Prudence, is it a bit better?
Yes, let me hope that you will hear me now.
Thank you.
All right, so I was just saying that I agree with the recommendations that have been made by the business people who have intervened, and I'm very much encouraged by their commitment as well, because with regard to the need for awareness, I see it in two aspects. The first one is to make sure that everyone understands the rules of the AfCFTA market. And this is what we are trying to do. The AfCFTA was negotiated by governments. That has to be understood. But now the operationalization comes to the private sector. So that's why we have to intensify the awareness activities to ensure that everyone understands the rules. The second aspect where we need to create awareness, and where I'm very much encouraged, is to encourage our private sector to produce for the market, because the AfCFTA market is meant for Africans. So we have to make sure that we have the same commitments as the previous speakers have done, especially Michael. We have to produce quality products. We have to produce everything that Africa needs, everything that Africa is importing now. Thirdly, we have to create awareness about mindset change. Africans have to understand that they need to develop their continent, they have to produce, and they have to consume. They have to consume products that are made in Africa. They have to produce quality products and then ensure that they satisfy the expectations of the customer. Now, let me use 1 minute to address 2 more questions which you have raised. The first one is the challenge of cross-border problems that have been emphasized. We know that we already have a protocol on free movement of persons, which has been negotiated and signed by many African countries. So in the effort to implement the AfCFTA, we will make sure that the issue of movement of persons is also addressed. I think that is a promise that we can give. Secondly, a number of instruments within AfCFTA already are there to address the challenges that business community have. We have an agreement or an instrument of elimination of non-tariff barriers, which means that all non-tariff barriers that are met across border are being addressed within the AfCFTA. We have an instrument on trade facilitation. We have an instrument on homes cooperation. We have an instrument on SPS. So I think those are some of the promises that all the challenges that have been identified will be addressed within the AfCFTA context. We have a program, a payment and settlement system, which is now being developed by in collaboration with the Export and Import Bank. It is going to ensure the currency convertibility across the continent. So business people will be making transactions and be made currencies. I think this is another good news to the business community. So I can go on and on. I appreciate the idea of bringing in blockchain technology to solve the problem of rules of origin. I think more work has to be done in terms of building the capacity, because if you have to introduce blockchain technology, you have to ensure that all stakeholders are very much capacitated. They are very much understanding the role that they have to play, from the farmer in the farm to the consumer. Everyone involved in the supply chain has to play a role in data verification, supplying information, and ensure that the blockchain technology applies to the determination of rules of origin. So thank you very much. I think we are running out of time.
Thank you very much, Prudence. And of course, I think it was said by Fatma at the beginning, but we will, apart the documents of this session and the recordings and the rest, we will also share a series of key documents. So we will get back to you, Prudence, from the Africa Union, but as well the EU and, you know, the main partners working in this area, that you also have a kind of resource base to consult. Before giving to Fatma, Jeremy, our DG at COLEACP.
Thank you, Isolina. And first, of course, my thanks to all the panelists and all the participants into this workshop. So I'm left with the daunting task of trying to close, so we're a bit late. I'm going to try to be extremely brief. So the discussions were of course, extremely interesting, rich, relevant. I'll start by bouncing back on one of the questions that I saw in the chat, which was addressed specifically to me. And the question was turning around, okay, with this Continental Free Trade Agreement, what can we be expecting in terms of evolution of relative market shares of different markets around the world for African produce? I'm summarizing. Last year, we finished a study that looked specifically at the evolution of trade flows in fruit and veg, fresh and processed, from sub-Saharan Africa and within sub-Saharan Africa. And I invite, of course, everybody to contact us to have access to this study. One of the main elements which came out of it, and which I'm of course, extremely pleased to share, because it was a study that was done on years before the Continental Free Trade Agreement was there and at an implementation phase, is that if we look at beginning of the years 2000 and 15 years afterwards, we see a clear evolution. We have an annual growth rate for produce from Sub-Saharan Africa on the European Union, aimed at the European Union, of approximately 1% on average per year. That's kind of the growth rate. And if you look at the growth rate of trade within Sub-Saharan Africa, so between countries, and this only captures the formal trade flows, we are at an average growth rate of 10%. And so this is just to give an idea that even before we start resolving some of the major obstacles which are still there to fully take advantage of the potential, of the huge potential that's there, that there are already some very concrete dynamics taking place in the market. And that's a reality that comes from our members. KOLEACP is a private sector not-for-profit association. The majority of our members are producers, processors, traders of fruit and veg, but also with a strong historical link, of course, with the European market. But those trends in terms of evolution of trade have already taken place. And it translates to KOLEACP in our daily activities into today. When we look at the different entities we work with, there's more support directly aimed at trade flows at a domestic and regional level than on exports. And when we look, the European market, of course, remains a very attractive market. And our whole challenge, and this is also to bring back into perspective our partnership with PAFO and the kind of elements we're trying to drive. So there's the recognition of the huge potential on the African market in itself. So of course, on outside markets, we have a huge challenge in terms of linking up more production with the other stages of the value chain to be able to have this more strengthened links established with markets. And that's the core of also the idea of working hand in hand around skills, know-how, knowledge. And I think that's the whole idea of what we'll be trying to achieve and increase with farmers' organizations. It's bringing these networks together, networks of MSMEs with historic links with outside markets. And we heard from the different stories. I think it's very important not to antagonize both dimensions. And what we truly believe in is in this capacity of sustainable export value chains to be able to drive the professionalization and increase of trade on a domestic and regional level. Last but not least, this is an element that hasn't been a lot discussed today, but clearly with this huge potential comes also a huge responsibility when we're looking at trade and the way agricultural systems are being built. And clearly the sustainability side of the systems are of the essence today. We talked, and it was mentioned about the value sharing throughout the supply chain. This is an essential element, a crucial element that's valid for agricultural systems all over the world. Of course, there's this very strong social inclusiveness, fairness of the building of value chains, but then there's also this environmental urgency, and there's a true opportunity here to be embarking maybe on innovative paths. Compared to some agricultural development paths which have been followed for XYZ reasons, but by other regions in the world. But there is here a true opportunity, we firmly believe, with the companies. But I guess Isolina and Fatma, this is also the objective of future sessions that we'll be organizing together. So again, thank you for everybody for your attendance, and looking forward to future sessions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. From my side, I can only say that looking at and the sessions before as well, but at the businesses and what they have achieved by themselves, despite, constraints, I'm very, very reassured that, and I reassure Prudence that in close collaboration with them, I mean, we can achieve certainly much more, because there are great stories, really great stories. I'm very admirative. So before giving the final word, of course, to the core partner, Fatma and PAFO, of course, I would like to thank you, Fatma, and for being a great partner and all your team. And from my side, of course, some of the businesses have been collaborating with COLEACP, others not, but I have many colleagues who are not on the front side, Marianne, Ursel, Margot, and so on, who have helped. And of course, you have all these names in the screen that have no image, and are Mohamed and Gaëtan helping on the technical side, the interpreters, and you have invisible people here, but very visible on the social media, who are Insaf from PAFO side and Sandra from a COLEACP side as well. So there are many people supporting us, and I thank them very, very much. Fatma, and of course, I give you a rendezvous to the next session, because I see that many of you come again and again. So it's also a great encouragement. Thank you very much to all of you. Fatma?
Merci, Isolina. Merci, bon.
Thank you, Isolina. Thank you very much. So many keywords we must put on the table. We must talk. We must discuss with the birth of this free trade zone, safety. We must talk infrastructure. We must talk corruption, anti-corruption, of course, involvement of other countries. Cold chain, because we're talking about food. And so all this, of course, we must come back to this, but we've already run out of time. But frankly, I would like to thank all the participants, all the panelists. Thank you very much to all of you. As Isolina said, we've seen that we've got people coming back, and so these meetings are relevant. And see you for the 4th session, which will be held on the 20th of May, same time, in order to get our friends from the Pacific region on board with us. I saw people from the US as well, and I believe so. Yes, next time we'll be discussing a sustainable African food chain, the role of SMEs, and so this invitation will be sent just like this one, and you will be able to register for the session. Thank you very much, Isolina. Thank you very much for the interpretation also. And I would also like to thank Alimata and all the communication teams from COLEACP and PAFO for their work. And so we'll meet again in 2 months' time. And congratulations, Isolina, for this great work. And so we will meet again soon. Have a lovely day, lovely evening or morning, depending on where you are, and see you in 2 months. Thank you very much.